solutions, and organizations are providing solutions for the 80% group. The 20% group, you're just not going to. And labor turnover and employees leaving organizations have always happened. Now is more the understanding of how do you keep the ones that are your high performers, your retention strategies in place, so that if you are losing any people, it's not the ones that are critical to your organization. It might be people that are your solid workers and trying to add greater value in that way.
Yeah, let's talk about how you've achieved that in your space. Let's talk about this employee experience value chain, if I can put it like that. How are you ensuring satisfaction, happiness, retention?
I think the biggest thing has been engaging with our employees. That's the first starting
Engagement,
point.
okay.
Because if you don't understand what employees are looking for, you're going to create solutions that might not fit what's in there.
Greetings and welcome. This is another exciting episode of the HR 360 podcast. My name is Themba. I'm your host. We're talking everything data analytics, HR analytics, people analytics. We're wanting to understand how to transform HR in this age of data, technology, and especially AI. I'm sitting today with Zameer, who's People Enablement Executive at Adcorp. We're wanting to talk about transforming leave management with data analytics. Zameer, welcome.
Thank you, Themba. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the time. Really appreciate it. I want to give you an opportunity before we get going to introduce yourself the best way you know how, the way you want our audience to know you and everything you think they should know about you.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Zameer. My surname is Ahmed. I work for the Adcorp Group as the HR executive for People Enablement. Effectively, I'm responsible for the employee experience. That's the way I look at it. My portfolios are basically your HR technology and insights, payroll, as well as employee benefits and well-being. So as you can imagine, from an employee lifecycle perspective, my portfolios touch an employee throughout their tenure with the organization.
Okay.
So whether you're joining us, while you're with us, and even when you're leaving us, I have some part to play in terms of that. So I actually count myself fortunate, to be honest with you, to have that kind of influence on employees. I think you really can support them in terms of maximizing on the organizational goals. And with all that kind of portfolios that I have, I've got access to a lot of data. So I can collect data, analyze the data, interpret the data, and make sure that we can come up with solutions that, basically support our employee experience.
Okay.
And obviously align our human capital goals with our business goals. So, yeah, in short, I look after the people experience.
Okay. We'll get to the data part. Someone said people don't leave employers. I don't know, you can say it better than I do, I believe, since you are the guru of employee experiences. But someone said along the lines of people don't leave employers, they leave bad bosses or something like that.
They leave their managers.
They leave their managers. How true is that statement in your space?
So I think there's some merit to it, in all honesty, because leadership is the fundamental essence of a successful organization. But the reality of it is that there is no real correlation from a data perspective. There's a lot of factors that influence an employee, how they're feeling. If you look at, especially since post-COVID, employees have gone from two earning income households to one income households. That means they have to make different decisions. So if somebody has an opportunity to move for a little bit extra finances, they do it. So I think the variables have changed in the last probably 3-4 years, impacting on COVID. So yes, a bad boss, ultimately people will leave, but that's why culture is important, and that's why the focus on understanding the employee sentiment becomes so critical. So I'll put it as a 50-50. I actually did my thesis on this, to be honest with you, when I did my MBA. There's a lot of data that I do have on there. I would have answered you very firmly based on my thesis that I did 10 years ago.
Okay.
But I would say in the last few years, there's a lot more variables post-COVID. It's kind of impacting on employees' decisions to actually leave organizations. But leadership is definitely one of it.
Take us through these variables.
So the first one is the type of work. People have got used to remote working.
Okay.
It's weird because before COVID, we were all 5 days in the office and there's no one. Now, obviously, COVID happened. A lot of people worked remotely full time, and then organizations started making the decision to say, okay, either come back full time or let's go hybrid. 2 days in the office, 3 days at home, or 3 days in the office, 2 days at home.
Yeah.
And people are upset, and they're like, I can't come to the office, for 5 days a week, and now they look for another opportunity that says fully remote. The global workforce is smaller. More South Africans are working abroad or still living here in South Africa, but supporting companies in the US and Europe, etc. So the opportunities have just changed, and that the taste of having to work remotely during COVID, some people can't get away from, and they can't get themselves to move back into the office. So I think the type of work has really kind of influenced decisions that people make. You were there to pick up a child from school. Now you have to make a plan. And that combination of your personal life and work life that came about with COVID, some people have found it difficult to move back into the old way of work, of coming to the office 5 days a week. So for me, that's been a big change in the global workforce. I think the type of work that people are looking for nowadays as well. A lot of people are going to the gig workers. They want to do a short project. They want to move on. They don't want to be tied to a company. They want to be more flexible in the way they work. That has also played a big role. And like I said earlier on, the fact that some houses were 2-income households and now that has changed to a 1-income household means people are making, decisions based on any compensation offers that they might have. And I think the last part about it is, how we're looking after our employees. Employees are now, I wouldn't say more wiser, but they're more aware. I think that would be the better word to use about their own well-being. Before well-being,
okay.
Yeah, before well-being was always there, and organizations did things. But I think now employees want to see more, hear more, and understand how are you helping me, and where they're finding organizations that might not be providing the support that they need.
Yeah,
they're looking at other opportunities out there to see, what exactly it might be for them.
Are you finding that organizations are listening? Are you finding that organizations are listening to the employees?
Yeah, so I mean, there's been a massive drive, I would say, in trying to shift and change. It's not as easy as it might look like to say, just put initiatives in for your employees. I think, our organization, there's over 1,000 employees, and you can never meet the needs of all of them. So you try and meet the needs of many. And in doing that, there are going to be a few people that might think, the service doesn't really meet up to my requirements. But I think the investment from an organizational perspective around the network that I work in as well, and my colleagues in other industries, people are making the effort, definitely. But ultimately, it boils down to the individual and whether where you are now and what you're receiving is of value to you, or whether there's another proposition that you feel is better for you.
I guess what I'm asking, maybe we could bring in the Pareto principle to this, right? Let's apply the 80-20 principle.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad situation if we understand at least 80% of our people. I don't think we're in a bad situation.
Yeah.
But the inverse is a problem.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think, and that's why I say, you're going to provide solutions, and organizations are providing solutions for the 80% group. The 20% group, you're just not going to. And labor turnover and employees leaving organizations have always happened. Now is more the understanding of how do you keep the ones that are your high performance, your retention strategies in place, so that if you are losing any people, it's not the ones that are critical to your organization. It might be people that are your solid workers and trying to create the value in that way.
Yeah, let's talk about how you've achieved that in your space. Let's talk about this employee experience value chain, if I can put it like that. How are you ensuring satisfaction, happiness, retention, right? Well-being, if I can throw that in there as well, to make sure that you've got, a workforce that stays for longer, because I believe that if they stay for longer and they're happy, they're productive, the more ROI for the business, right?
Yeah.
How are you achieving that? What are some of the measures which you've put in place to ensure that?
So I think the biggest thing is engaging with our employees. That's the first starting
Engagement,
point.
okay.
Because if you don't understand what employees are looking for, you're going to create solutions that might not fit what's in there. So we've done a lot of surveys, trying to understand, even during COVID, post-COVID, what are employees looking for. Even in our hybrid policy that we have, we actually asked employees, what would you prefer? And based on that, made certain decisions around that. So for me, the employee engagement has been the first part. The second part, and probably the biggest part, has been our investment in technology in terms of supporting our employees.
Okay.
So from a HCM perspective, implemented Workday as a HR solution.
Okay.
And with that has come a lot of great insights in terms of what our employees are experiencing and how they're going through. So that's allowed us to kind of create the solutions that we're looking for. The last part has been to optimize our processes. I think from a governance perspective, those are probably the key things that you need to look at. So if I look at my payroll portfolio, we've spent a lot of time and energy understanding how do we make that experience that employees have with payroll a smoother experience. So in the past, if you wanted to make a claim for your cell phone, as an example, you'll fill out a form, get 2 people to sign it, and then submit it to payroll and hope you can make it in cutoff. Now you go into a system, you click submit, it's go to your line manager, they approve it, all within 5 minutes. That it used to take 10 days for my team to recon the cell phone reimbursement inputs into payroll.
Yeah.
It doesn't take 10 days anymore. So by just touching on their experience and what are the points of pain that they have in our HR practices, we're able to mitigate that. So I think we spend a lot of time kind of looking at our employee life cycle and understanding from an employee perspective where are the pain points, and then assessing those situations to say what can we do and how can we look at it. So obviously policy reviews in terms of understanding what we can do in that way. So about probably 4 years ago, we re-looked at our leave policies because we were having quite a few issues around leave, and that's fundamentally made a massive change in our employee well-being, but also our operational requirements. So for me, it's been about a combination of feedback versus using data versus putting together processes that kind of optimize the experience of the employees. So from a team perspective, we've probably become paperless. I think we're probably 95% paperless now, if not 100%. I don't want to put 100% on there, but I think we're 95% paperless from probably 5 years ago, being fully here's a contract, sign it, papers, and some
Yeah, you've transformed completely digital.
Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. I'm so glad you touched on, that leave portion there, because I want us to also delve deep into that. You were able to transform your leave management in your space using data analytics. Tell us about that. How did you get it right? Where did you start? How did you approach it? What are some of the challenges, and what has that resulted into?
So I think we can start from a challenge point of view. We probably were blind, to be honest with you. We knew we had a leave problem, but you don't know what the leave problem is.
Okay.
So we didn't have the best of IS systems from an HR perspective at that point in time. So we had leave queries every month. Like as soon as the month ended, leave balances were on pay slips. As soon as people got their pay slips, queries. My leave is wrong. This is not right. What's happening in here? And probably the first week or so of the month is just dealing with leave queries. And the second thing was that we just weren't sure whether employees were taking leave. We had employees with high leave balances. That either meant from an operational requirements perspective, we weren't giving employees leave, which means their well-being was of concern, or employees were taking leave and they weren't actually putting it into the system, which means there was a financial kind of component from an organizational perspective. And that's probably the difficult thing with leave, because leave, in essence, for us, when we view it as an organization, we view leave from a leave management, from our employee well-being perspective. We look at it as that main being to say, why do you have leave? If you think about it, yes, the basic condition of Employment Act says you must have leave.
Yeah.
But what is the purpose of leave? And leave ultimately is for your well-being. You work hard and you need a break. And if you're not taking the leave, that means we have a risk from an organizational perspective where your well-being is at risk. So I think from a challenge point of view, the data around understanding the root causes for why we had people querying leave so much, why the leave balances were so high, and even why people were taking leave. Like on the sick leave side, we just knew it was sick leave, but what was it? We never knew, we never understood, so we couldn't really support our employees in any way. So I think from a challenge perspective, it was important, and probably the key point in starting our journey around leave management is understanding what are the problems we're having. How we went about with the shift was ultimately using data.
Okay.
A lot of data. I remember when we did the model, and I did a model basically around the data. We looked at historical data in terms of the last 3 to 5 years, existing data, and looked at we've got companies within our group and looked at the rules that they have across each of these companies. And when we looked at it, there was 95 leave rules across 14 companies in one group. So you can take any system in the world and you can put 95 leave rules in there. It's going to confuse people left, right, and center. And it's going to create a lot of issues in doing that there. So the data was probably the key driver in supporting our decisions to which way to go. And the first way to go was we need to review our policies. Because we are one group, although we have multiple companies and we are brand-centric, the kind of consistency and fairness across all the companies just wasn't there because you got 95 leave rules. And that was the starting point in there. And in understanding that, we had to basically look at our business requirements. What type of business are we in? How do people work? And what is the best direction to take to ensure that we don't negatively affect employees? Because I think leave is a sensitive topic for employees. You can never give them less. You have to always give them what they have or give them more, because that's ultimately a benefit that they have. And it's an important benefit in any value proposition that organization does. So for us, it was understanding the challenges, understanding the data that kind of was available to us. And effectively what the data told us was that either people were taking no leave or they were not capturing their leave. And we needed to review that. And secondly, it told us that we had too many rules. And we needed to find consistency across all our organizations.
Consistency, I like that.
To basically make sure that we're able to manage it. And we then went about putting together some data models around what can work for us. We did a 10-year analysis of the different proposals that we have in terms of leave. So we use Patterson grade as a kind of a measure of eligibility. So based on the Patterson grade, you accrue so much leave. And we ran a few models around if we had to do this, what would happen? If we had to do this, what would happen? And ultimately balance the operational kind of requirements of having your workforce available, at the key points in time versus balancing the employee well-being to say, hey, we want our employees to be, a healthy workforce. So how do we make sure we have these two things in balance? And we came up with a policy that, in effect, fundamentally has changed the way we manage leave. It's one rule, no matter which organization you're in within our group, everyone understands it. And there's a clear way around how it manages with a mixture of how you accrue versus how you forfeit, because we want people to use their leave. So when you put something in like a forfeiture, you all of a sudden see quite a high take-up of people, going on leave. And even from a line manager perspective, the education that we had to look at on the third part was important, because now they understood the value of leave in terms of their productivity. So, if somebody is working 12 months straight without taking leave, they might be a great worker, but eventually their productivity is going to nosedive because they're going to get to burnout or their well-being is not managed afterwards. So a lot of change management went in as well to understanding what is the importance of leave. What is leave in essence? And not just take it for granted to say, oh, you join an organization, you get leave. Is what is the purpose? And that's why I go back to when we started this conversation that, yes, it might be legislated that we must give employees leave. But if you actually go to the purpose of leave, you understand how as an organization you should be looking at leave from a both operational and employee well-being perspective.
Okay. And what are some of the success stories you can share with us after you've implemented this data strategy for leave management? What were you able to achieve? Yeah,
so I think from a query perspective, I got no queries. I can tell you I have no queries.
Okay.
That employee of mine that used to deal with it for the first week of the month was a very happy person after a few months of implementation. That, in all honesty, no leave queries is probably music to your ears. Probably the worst thing in the world is for an employee to question their leave. So there's trust now. We have trust that our employees trust us in the system. We trust us in the system. There isn't a question of saying, are people taking leave? Is there some concerns that we must have around whether it's been taken or abused? I think trust has been the biggest thing that we've kind of gauged out of it. From a company perspective, our leave liability, we're able to manage that cost much better than what we were managed before.
Okay.
Before there was probably no real control of it. It was just a number. And you can understand from a financial management perspective that as much as leave is a benefit to employees, it's a cost to an organization. So how you manage that is critically important in terms of your financial practices. So much better management of that, actually a reduction in that liability over a period of time. And most importantly, our employees are now taking leave. So we can actually better manage them in terms of the way there's cycles that they take it, in terms of their hire date. So they get now more leave types now. That's the interesting part, is we've actually given more leave since we come to this new thing, because we're able to understand our employees better. So as an example, we never had birthday leave before. Now we've got birthday leave.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so but we're also able to control you better, because the reason we're giving you your birthday leave is we want you to celebrate your birthday. So we don't leave it open for 12 months. We say in the month of your birthday, it's your birthday month, we call it your birthday month. So in that month, take your birthday leave. You don't take it, unfortunately, you lose it. But we're able to do these things now because we have a better understanding and a better management of our leave practices. So I think probably the last part about it is on our sick leave, we're able to do much more deep dive in terms of understanding what's happening with sick leave.
Tell us about that. Sounds interesting.
Yeah, so if you look at probably the last 12 to 18 months globally, there's a lot of research that shows that sick leave has gone up, in terms of employees taking sick leave.
Yeah.
And I think my personal opinion is that people take sick leave now because before COVID, if you're feeling a little bit fluish, you still went to the office. After COVID, people are like, no, I'm feeling fluish, I'll stay at home, protect the other people and protect myself. I think there's been that mindset shift. But what it's allowed for us is that we've implemented reasons for why people will go on sick leave. So obviously we are engaged with the employees. Generic, we don't go into confidential data and everything else, but we're able to understand, as an example, if people are going for medical appointments, are they being hospitalized, is it a sports injury? So data points that you never had before is now available to you. And more interestingly, we've done some analysis now recently where it's not actually the number of days that you take that's an issue to a company. It's more the instances that we should take leave. So if I give you an example, if you and I work for the same organization, and let's say in a 12-month period, you took 20 days of sick leave, I took 20 days of sick leave, but I took the 20 days because I played soccer and I hurt my knee.
Okay.
So needed to recover, and doctor booked me off for the 20 days. But you've taken the 20 days over 8 instances. So you applied for leave now, you took 2 days. Then you applied for leave in 9 weeks' time, you took 3 days. Then you applied for leave, you took 1 day. So you've taken more instances of leave. I've taken 1 instance. So from a productivity perspective and a management perspective, my line manager knows for the 20 days I'm not available. So he can plan. He can manage, or she can manage resources and say, okay, he's not available, this is what you do. But yourself, just taking this kind of frequent period of time over that, as a line manager, you're not sure when an employee is going to get sick. Like, you can't plan for an employee being sick.
100%.
No matter what data model you put in place, a human being's health is never going to be dictated by any data model. So now when you're off sick for 2 days, it's not enough time for me to go and get another resource or find someone to do it. So impact on productivity, as much as we've taken the same number of days, is more by you because you've taken more instances of leave than by me, who's only taken 1 instance of leave. So those are some of the things that I think you become more enlightened, as you get a better understanding and a better management of leave.
I like what you're saying around, this leave analysis, management, people well-being, all those type of things. And you've just now thrown in another interesting word, productivity. So how has this helped you enhance productivity? And can you see an improvement?
Yeah, so look, I think it's a subjective measure, to be honest with you, productivity.
Okay.
But I think it's a better management of productivity. I think when you're able to manage your leave, whether an employee takes annual leave, family responsibility and sick leave are not really controllable leave types, but you're able to be more aware of it and proactively manage it. So, as an example, in your instance that I just raised now, HR will probably have a conversation with you and say, hey, Themba, last 12 months, you've taken 20 days sick leave, you have 30 days in a 3-year cycle, so you've already used up 2/3 of your sick leave in a 3-year cycle. Is there a concern? Is there a health issue that maybe we need to be aware about? So can we do that there? So I think it's not a tangible improvement in that, in terms of measuring metrics out of it there.
Okay.
Ultimately, it boils down to a lot of variables in terms of individual performance versus company performance. But what we do have is a better framework to be able to support the business and a better framework to be able to support the employer because we know more. So for me, I mean, I know a lot of people talk about leave and productivity, and there definitely is a correlation. But in our world, in the way we've done it, it hasn't been about measuring a metric that says your performance score went up or you made more revenue, you made more sales. It was more around from a business availability perspective, resource planning perspective, and an employee well-being perspective. Are we able to support you better? Because then your line manager is more equipped to be able to manage you, and we as an organization are more equipped to support you. So if there is, maybe we have a conversation with you and you say, guys, I actually went to the doctor and the doctor said this is the case, so I actually need, to work from home every second week because I go for this treatment or whatever story it might be. We're able to then work with you, and that might lead to an increase in productivity because now you have an organization that truly cares about you because we're trying to understand you, rather than you now having to take 2 days sick leave or 3 days leave in you to try and achieve what you want to do. You now know that we're here to support you, and that sees a measure. But to measure that, I think, I know there's a lot of tools out there, but I have a different view on that. Is how you measure productivity is subjective, and for me there is a difference, I would say, from an intuition-based perspective, but it's not something we measure in the more analytical perspective.
Okay. And then my last question on this part of the discussion is on the well-being of the employees. What are you noting since you started getting your hands dirty, on the data and the analytics? What are you seeing change from the employees' well-being point of things? So are you seeing more happy people? Are you seeing more excited people?
Yeah, so I think we do have happier people. They like I said, they trust our data and our information. We've got good results in our engagement surveys over the last few years, so I think that is moving in the right direction. But I think what it's allowed for us from an organization perspective is allowed us to create better support for our employees. So we're able to implement better initiatives around it. Before, we were blinded in truth. So if we take the scenario I gave with yourself, we wouldn't know that that's an issue. We would just say, sick leave is high, and talk to you about, hey, you're taking too much sick leave. But meanwhile, you actually got a concern. Now we can empathetically engage you and say, Themba, we've noticed this is a situation. So it just fundamentally changes the conversation and changes the way it is. So I think from a well-being perspective, we're able to provide more solutions, more tools, more frameworks of support to basically help you as an employee. And I think that ultimately has its connotations in terms of productivity, employee satisfaction, and we've seen it in there. I mean, recently in the last 12 months, we've gone through a lot of shift in proactive management of employee well-being. So our view is that we don't want you to be burnt out or depressed or any emotional well-being that you might have and then get support, because that's the kind of, I would say, historical way of providing well-being. We want to be proactive. We want to, before something happens to you, we want to engage you and give you solutions and say, hey, you know what, this is a solution, this is what you can do, these are the options you have available to you. So as an example, if we just extend on the sick leave component, if somebody has got less than 10 days of sick leave in their cycle and they still got more than 6 months left in their sick leave cycle, we have engagements with them to say, you know what, just the data is telling us something's not right. You've taken a lot of sick leave and you still have a lot of time in there. What's the situation? And then the people generally in confidence share with you and tell you, this is the story, this is what you have. So I think it's for me been a massive fundamental shift in how, from a human capital management perspective, you're providing the employees with solutions. And when you talk about employee experience, I mean, what better way to get experience that your company knows you and your company cares about you, to say, hey, you haven't told us, but we've noticed something.
100%. There's that concept of, when you come to work, leave your problems at the door. You'll collect them on your way home. What's your take on that?
Nah, we are not robots.
But you know it exists, right?
Yeah. No.
What's your advice for those businesses that are still operating like that?
Well, I think we need a shift in mindset. The reality is that as individuals, no matter where you go, I counted it with the old adage: no matter where you go, your problems follow you. Right? So some people say,
where you go, your problems follow you.
Okay. Some people say, I want to leave the country because, for whatever reasons, I might be living in Pretoria, I want to move to Joburg because, I might be move away from my family or whatever the story might be. But your problems will follow you. So as a human being, I mean, home is part of who you are. The fact that you are the person that you are today, your home has contributed to that.
Yeah.
And your pressure points in terms of you coming to the office, if your wife, as an example, had a flat tire and she doesn't know how to change a tire and you need to go and help her out, you're going to drive 40 k's out of your way to go and help her because, that's your wife. Or if your child is not well, or if something in your life is not 100%, it's going to impact your mindset. So even if you leave it and say you forgot about it, when you've come into that office, take a new father, a new mother, baby wakes up 2 o'clock in the morning and doesn't sleep after that. Yeah, they left their problem at home. The baby's at the house, but they've come to work tired. So yeah, I think organizations, if there are any organizations like that, really needs to consider a shift in mindset. When you talk about employee well-being, you're not talking about it in a silo approach of you coming to work. There's a story. You're looking at it holistically. And that's why for us, we also provide that kind of engagement to say, there's financial support in terms of financial well-being to help you, because we know that work is not the only thing that you think about.
Okay, let's make this exciting now.
Okay.
Let's make it.
I thought it was really exciting.
I'm not saying you're boring, by the way. You've shared, a lot of good points, a lot of valid points, and I can't remember who said this. I think it was Leanne, actually. Leanne, she's a friend of mine from Microsoft. She said something very interesting. She said it's the exciting things that gets most of the attention many times in businesses. Mm-hmm. So if you're wanting to launch AI projects, they'll get the budget. But the well-being of the people, they are almost the boring things. Mm-hmm. They're not the exciting things.
Yeah.
And this is why sometimes they're being left behind.
Yeah.
So what you've said, what we're talking about now, is the most important things in businesses. But many times are the things which are usually overlooked, because we'd rather be working on the next AI project. Yeah. We'd rather be working on, setting up in space.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And we're leaving our people behind. We're leaving the well-being of our people behind. We are leaving the issues behind, a lot of things behind. Mm-hmm. So when I say let's talk about the exciting part, I don't mean that what we've been talking about now is actually not fundamental. Let's talk about the future.
Okay.
Give us an outlook of the next 3 years. What do you see? How is HR looking? How is business looking? How do you see the future of business?
So obviously we know the macroeconomic situation in South Africa. So we obviously hope with the elections now being done and, everything kind of hopefully being sorted out, that from an economy perspective we have growth.
Yeah.
But I think from an organizational perspective, South Africans are resilient as a country,
Yeah.
And I think organizations are like that as well. So we're fighting tooth and nail for growth and opportunities out there. I think your markets outside of South Africa have become a bigger play. Your Africa, your Oceania kind of component, because the world is becoming smaller.
Sorry, Zameer, to interrupt you there. We'll pick up on that point. You said South Africans are resilient. Mm-hmm. Would you say that's the reason possibly organizations are not looking after the well-being of their people, because they believe South Africans can take it? Mm. South Africans are strong, they've been through a lot, and every time they come out fine or something like that. Do you think someone could be thinking like that, to say South Africans are naturally resilient, and this is why maybe we don't need to actually go the extra mile in helping them deal with certain issues? Would you say that's also a possibility there?
I think there is a mindset component to that, but I think the reality of it is a lot of people don't know how. So you talk about employee well-being, it's not a tangible construct. It's not something that you can physically feel and do. How do you? It's emotions, right? And a lot of people struggle with emotions. They struggle to kind of articulate emotions. They struggle to be able to have that understanding of somebody else's emotions. So now when you look at it from an organizational perspective and you say, no matter the size of your organization, you need to focus on your well-being, but you haven't done it before, the how maybe becomes an issue in there. So you then default to what you know. And I think a lot of companies try, but they probably try at the most basic level to say, okay, what do we normally have? Let's have a wellness day, let's get Planet Fitness to come here and have a stand, or let's have Discovery to be here, and let's do that basic level of well-being. So I think there has been a broader shift to it, but I actually would ask the question, do companies know how to support the employees?
Okay, that's a good question.
And
that's a good question.
Yeah.
And what would you say to that question?
I don't think people know. I'll be honest with you. I think you need to really invest in it, and I think if you're investing in it, then I say you know how. Because
that's actually a very good one. That's actually a very, very good one. That's a very good one. I love it so much. And there's this concept of AI. Since I've opened a can of AI. I might just use an example, of AI. It's the same thing, because I feel like there's so much hype going on about AI, and until you really sit down with someone and you hear how they narrate their understanding of AI, you realize they don't understand AI. You know what I mean?
It's the talk of the town now.
It's just
so use the jargon and you sound clever.
100%. You can use the jargon and then you can sound clever. But if you go now, a little bit deeper, getting the understanding, the role data has to play for successful AI. The role technology has to play for successful AI rollout, all those type of things, and it becomes more interesting. But anyway, I love what you're saying, to say you would actually ask, do organizations actually understand, how to actually roll out employee well-being initiatives? Do they understand where it starts? How it unfolds, what to measure, which metrics we're using to measure. If we're talking about employee well-being, what exactly are we looking for? And you said something about this not being tangible, but even that, it's emotional, and we can almost experience emotions as much as we can touch emotions. But if I'm feeling sad, I know I'm feeling sad. If I'm feeling happy, I know I'm feeling sad. I know I'm feeling happy, if I can put it like that. So it's almost as if I need to come up with some sort of an employee well-being metrics that I'm using to say that this is Zameer, we have moved him. So each component, of this criteria or these metrics which we're using has a scoring, and we ultimately want to get you to a 10. And you're currently at a 3. 3 months down the line, we've seen an improvement because we've managed to move you to a 4.
And what you're saying there, that just little example you're giving, is the importance of creating a framework. Because in truth, even organizations that invest a lot in employee well-being, they don't know.
Okay.
So they're doing, right? So they'll do an initiative, and somebody will come to them and maybe pitch them an idea and say, this is what we have to support your employee well-being, and we think it will help. A lot of sales companies will tell you it will help this year, but you as an organization will take it on and say, okay, here's an employee well-being solution. Is maybe going to help nutritional well-being. People must eat right. But until you implement it and then assess it, you're never going to know whether it works for your organizations or not. So there's this repetitive process of getting data, getting feedback, and understanding what am I doing and how do I do it. So if you don't know where to start, that becomes the first point, and people then sometimes think, oh, it's a big concept. So if I don't know where to start, let me just do what I normally do. But once you start investing in it and start playing around, even the smallest shift, the 1 centimeter shift, is a shift. And
it is.
Eventually, over time, you'll build that culture and understanding of it. Because I think well-being is a culture. That's the reality of it. Yes, we say South Africans are resilient. And there's culture as well. It's been for what we've been through. No matter what background you come from, there's a resilient culture in there if you look at our history. But resilience wears thin as well. Over time you're tired.
You get tired.
And
you get exhausted. You get fed up.
Exactly.
Then you break. Okay, let's go back to your point and pick up from where you left off, if you can still remember. I was asking a question about the future of business, and you were still taking us through that. Sorry to take you back.
No.
I just thought, what you said was very, very interesting, that we needed to actually, talk about it.
Yeah. Look, I think so. From a future business perspective, like I said, I think opportunities are there. No matter which world you live in, there's always opportunities. So how you leverage the technology infrastructures that you have will probably enable you.
Yeah.
I think from a human capital management perspective, there's going to be a big shift in our practices.
Okay.
I think one of the big things that will probably happen is that our workforce, from a generation perspective, is going to change.
Yeah.
So you've got your younger generations coming through; they have different demands. So your employee benefits, your employee well-being, your value proposition to this
the employee experience,
yeah, is going to become different.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody that's just leaving the university now might be playing Fortnite or into your gaming stuff, and they want time off to go to a gaming competition. You never ever thought about that. You thought about sports leave because somebody might be representing South Africa in something, but you've never had that. So I think a lot of human capital management practices are going to change, but also the type of work that people are looking for. So I alluded to this earlier on to say that you have more people saying, before I wanted a permanent role with a company and be kind of tied to a company because it represented safety. But somehow through COVID, I've actually been exposed to a different world where I can come and work for you for 6 months, go and work for you for 3 months, or work for 2 companies at the same time. You understand? And I think you're going to see more of that shift as people realize, what they want out of life. Because before, and if you look at the generational requirements, now there's a bigger social fulfillment that people are looking for. So if you look at what a person wants when they work for you, they want to see that you as a company are, investing in your communities, you're doing things like that, which means if they want to see you do it, they probably want to do it themselves. So the way they live their lives is very different. So I think the next 3 years will do that. I think South Africa, we might be slightly behind the curve in terms of technology. I think it still requires investment, and with some of our strains from a macroeconomic perspective, some companies are hesitant to do it. And I can understand why. It's an investment, and there's a lot of stories of technology projects not being done on time, not being done in budget, etc. We know all the history of technology projects, but I think the companies that do invest in the right technology for the right organizations, design it well and leverage it, are really going to see great insights and great understanding of their people, and from that are able to then support the organizational objectives more. So I think there's going to be definitely a shift in business mindset to be more open than only South Africa. But I think the human capital management practices are fundamentally going to change, and as the change is going to be dictated by where's our market strategies and this new generation of employees coming through.
100%. And how do you think? Well, let me ask you this question this way: how you are doing it in your own space, and how you recommend other businesses should be doing it. How do you ensure that you have people in your space with the right skills that they need to take the business forward in your own space? How are you doing it? But also, how do you recommend other businesses should be doing it, should be approaching it?
So, from my perspective, is you reskill, right? And you retrain. I mean, we hear it a lot. We hear how people are saying that the jobs we do today are not going to exist tomorrow.
Okay, I've heard that before.
So as much as I believe that, I think it's not so extreme. It will be in a different version, you'll just do it differently. But I do think you need to continuously reinvent yourself in terms of knowledge and training. So like you mentioned earlier on, from an AI perspective and a data perspective, there's a lot of things going on. So you need to keep close to that. So we've created, as an example, like I told you earlier on, we use Workday as our core system. So we've got a lot of relationships in the Workday community where we engage with the community to understand best practice, what's happening, what's something new come out, is there any functionality that we're not using now that can be used. So we keep quite close to that. I have a lot of exposure to research and things that are going on in the industry overall to kind of keep abreast of it. But from a company perspective, it's about creating this defined skills program to understand where we want to go. Because as much as you ask a question about the future, as organizations, we've got a future plan. We know what our objectives are. We know what we want to achieve. Yeah. So you need to do that skills analysis to be able to understand what do I have now versus what do I need tomorrow. And that's what we're doing. We're doing a combination of, because the world is changing so fast, you still need to know what's happening now. You can't only plan about the future. But whilst we're doing that, let's understand what development programs we can create. We're also looking at our career pathing. I think historically career pathing has always been vertical. You start off in the process. If you were a sales admin, then you're going to become a sales supervisor, and then you're going to be a sales manager, and then you're going to be, sales MD. That's no longer the case. You can become a sales admin first and then end up being a finance manager tomorrow, because the world of skills and the world of knowledge is fundamentally different.
I love that. I love that point.
For me, it's about understanding that, and data plays an important part in that, because it's a little bit complex in the way things go, but understanding historically what people have done in your organization, because you remember, for you to do a career shift, it's probably easier to do it in your existing organization. If you try and do it in an organization outside of you, they're going to look at your CV and say, hello, you're a sales manager, now you're going to be an accountant. That doesn't make sense. Why would I hire you? But if you're in your organization, you probably will get more opportunities to be able to pivot in that way. So I think for us, it's purely been on understanding where we want to go as an organization. And, sometimes you just don't have the skills inside and you need to look at the skills outside. But I think the investment in our people around using their performance ratings, creating development plans around that, and understanding their career pathing are probably the fundamental element of a talent management framework. It says, how do you retain your best people while also helping those people that might have some opportunity areas?
Let's talk about an HRHC leader looking to enhance employee engagement and business outcomes. And I know you possibly have shared this a little bit earlier, but I want to make sure that we capture this, for our audience, to make sure that they have clear understanding on what to do after this. So a business leader, HRHC, looking to enhance employee engagement and business outcomes, what advice would you recommend?
Yeah, I think for me the first part is you need to invest in your data infrastructure. I think getting the right systems and right tools is critically important. If you don't have something in place, you're going to do things based on intuition. And for me, what data allows is that it's a more quantifiable way of getting evidence of your employees' behavior, their needs, their challenges. Historically, the way HR has functioned has been through intuition. So, the HR business partners are quite close to the business. They'll engage with employees, engage with managers, and they'll get feedback. They say, this is what we think, and this is what we hear here, or this is what I saw here. And based on that, and initiatives will be created, and then you'll implement something in the business. But now with data, what it allows us to do is we move from a more kind of intuitive-based management to probably a more evidence-based strategy. So you're now able to use data to quantify what you want to do. So I think the starting point will be to look at that. You can be a good person that uses, and it's been proven for the last 50, 60 years since the HR practice has been open, where we've used that intuition as a base of running HR. But like you talk about the future, I think data is going to be a critical component of that. I think the decision making will be more informed. So at the moment, if you're doing it without data, it's your intuition.
Yeah, 100%.
And that sometimes works and sometimes it doesn't work. And in the long run, might not create the buy-in that you want, because your organization might be saying, but you told us about this, we did that, it didn't work. You told us about this, we did it, didn't work. Now, if you got data involved in it, you can say, okay, you use data to tell us about this, we saw that. Then you're able to measure it afterwards, because data allows that. It allows you to measure the effectiveness. So if you go and put in a program, or you do something for your employee experience or to align with your business goals, you're able to measure it afterwards and say, we did this, this is the case. So I think that's the starting point, is you need to actually look at your systems, look at your data infrastructure and say, how does it compare? Am I able to get the best out of this year, and how am I able to leverage this year? So I would definitely start there. I think we need to prioritize our employee experience. I know it's like a new buzzword or a recent buzzword in the world of human capital management, but how your employee experiences your organization will dictate how they stay with your organization and how they perform and your productivity and your output. So unless you know that, to your point that you made earlier on, you're never going to know what to do to help them in that way. So again, the data component comes in here to say, use your data to support your employee experience, looking at their engagement, looking at their well-being and their health and their development. If you look at those three components of the engagement, their well-being, and the development, you probably encompass a lot of the employee experience in there, because my company cares for me. They're seeing whether I'm engaged or not. From a well-being perspective, they have solutions in place that's able to support me when I'm not feeling at my best. And from a development perspective, I'm able to grow in this organization, because that's what people want. No matter what level you are in, you want to be able to grow. You want to be able to understand that learning is a continuous evolution. So you're able to get it out of here. So I think focusing on that is important. And I think, to simplify, the last part will probably be creating a culture of feedback. We must be comfortable with feedback, and I think that's probably a change in a lot of organizations from HR practices. We know HR historically has been known for policies. It's a policy, and this is what you do, and it's a framework, and this is how we do. But I think the shift in terms of how we manage our people going forward is we need to be able to be open to continuous feedback, and using that feedback with the data to then review our HR practices 100%. And say what's happening. So I spoke about earlier on about how I think our workforce is going to change over the next few years, and we spoke about the future and what it looks like, and there's much more qualified people out there telling you how the future is going to look, and if you don't therefore use feedback, how are you going to pivot and shift with your organization or shift with the times in that way? So I think for me, those three elements in a simplified manner probably is what I would say.
Okay. How does all this affect the HR business partner? And how does the HR business partner position themselves to still be relevant going forward? Because I'm asking this question based on the interactions we've had with most HR business partners. When it comes to data, some they don't feel the data thingy is not. I'm not here for that. There's people for that I can always say, Zameer, this is what I need. But how do you see all this data analytics world, this AI world, this technology world affecting or rather reshaping that role of the HR business partner?
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is probably the initial kind of experience that a lot of people have when it comes to something new. And there's comfort in there, right? Like I said before, the HR business partners, the way they're used to engaging with employees is we sit down and we talk. Hey, Themba, you got an issue. Let's have a conversation. How does it feel? And then from there we deal with stuff. Now you're fundamentally empowering them to go and have a conversation. So the way they work is fundamentally different. So for the HR person, I would say it changes the way you do your work. Before, I think there was a high level of administration involved in the work. If somebody wanted to do something, there was documents that need to be filled out, things. And now that it can be managed by a system, it can be managed by data you're managing there. Now you have the one. They've got all these data points that you can go to business before business comes to you and say, this is what's happening in your business. This is the solutions we need to put in place. So I know a lot of people are maybe afraid to some extent to kind of embrace the data world, but I think when you shift your mindset and look at it from a lens of actually what is this data going to give me, it's going to give you the freedom to be more of a consultant, more engaging in that way rather than somebody that was just taking feedback and then trying to go and figure out what's happening. Now you're able to come forward, put up solutions, and that's where the fun stuff, right? You spoke about fun earlier on. That's the fun stuff, is creating. So you're able to now be a creative person in terms of the solutions that you're offering, obviously within guidelines, but you're able to now actually come in there with insightful information that helps the business, makes decisions, putting new things in there. So you are co-creating with the business, then you put it in, then you're able to assess it, then you're able to see where it works, and you're able to redo it. So I would say to those people that change is hard.
Change is hard.
Yeah, but the reality is that it needs to be embraced. If the role that you want to do is this role, then the growth of this role is going to be influenced based on data. Probably the best kind of business partners will be the ones with the most information.
Okay.
Because they're able to tell better stories.
Give us some homework. What would you want us to go home and do? What would you want our viewers to go and work on? 2 things you think we must go and start working on, go and start thinking about.
Yeah, I think the first thing that I would say to anyone listening to this session is go and review your current infrastructure, and ask yourself the question: is this infrastructure that I have, the system, the tools, the data that I have, something that's going to enable me to improve my employee experience, or something that's actually not adding any value to it. For me, that'll be the first part. And I think the second part, employee well-being, is quite close to me, would be to ask yourself the question that, what can I do that even makes a 1 centimeter shift in the current framework that I am?
What can I do that makes even a 1 centimeter shift?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, because a lot of organizations, I think from an investment point of view, they sometimes struggle to commit the investment in there because, like we spoke about earlier, it's not a tangible change that you can see or immediate change that you can see. And therefore, sometimes you have to work harder to get an investment. But there are things that we can do with the framework that we have to say that if I do this, I can see that shift. And every time you move 1 centimeter, you're moving 1 centimeter closer to where you want to go. So that would be what I would give you as homework.
Okay. What do you look forward to? We're wrapping up now. I'm now asking you as Zameer, what are you excited about as a person?
I'm excited about creating. I think for me, we're living in an exciting time. There's a lot of things that are happening from a technology perspective, but from a world perspective. Like if you look at the things that are happening out there, there's so much that you can create. That sometimes you might get a little bit lost as to where to start. But for me, I like creating. So when I look at from a research perspective, I'm talking about from a work perspective, the amount of things that are coming out around systems, data, some academic research as well, it makes me excited to think what's possible. I love telling stories, so when the data comes out and you're able to tell a story about a journey that you've been through, I think that's fantastic. On the personal side, I'm looking forward to soccer season starting.
Okay.
I love my sports, so really looking forward to that. But creating, especially in HR, it's weird. I mean, who would have thought that, HR a few years ago, probably when I was in university, was like policies and procedures, and you follow and you do, and you follow and you do. And now we're living in an era of HR where you can create, and how much fun is that?
Yeah, 100%. And I really believe that the data is actually, it's actually adding so much to this change.
I think it's a cornerstone. You can't fundamentally change without the data. And I think it's like you can change, but it's like you're going down a blind man's alley. You don't know where you're going. At least with the data, you'll have an idea of where you're going, and then hopefully it'll take you in the right direction.
Okay. I want you to think about this one carefully. Not that it will get into trouble, not in that sense. But I can give you 2 seconds to really think about it. These are your final words.
Okay.
And we can call these Zameer's 2 minutes of wisdom or something like that. You're going to look into the camera. Any final words you'd like to share with our viewers?
Yeah, so never asked if 2 minutes. I might take 5.
No. So the 2 minutes was just a joke. Yeah. You're not limited. If you want to do 10 minutes, it's up to you.
Yeah, no.
Anything, any final words, anything you just want our viewers to, to keep in their heads, to keep in their mind, to take with them as they take the HR careers forward. We just want to empower someone. Our belief as a business is that HR definitely, the HR fraternity, the HR professionals definitely need, new ways of doing things. And it's not a matter of you don't know what you're doing, because I think sometimes there's that little bit of arrogance when you want to teach someone something. It's not to say you don't know what you're doing. It's a matter of, here's another way of doing it, or possibly here's something that you may have not thought about before, type of a thing. So I think that's what I'm looking for you to achieve here, to say, what are the things that you'd like? And it could be a well-seasoned HR professional. It could be a graduate. It could be someone who's wanting to get into HR, who's thinking about HR. What are the things that you'd like them to know, keep in mind, and really, cement in their hearts or even in their minds?
Yeah. So from my perspective, I think let's simplify it. we have to be open. From an HR perspective, we're probably living in the most exciting times of HR. It's probably also the toughest time of HR because the demands and the requirements are there. But historically, people have always said that, HR must fight for a seat. And, I don't really like that story about HR must fight for a seat at the table. But, nowadays, they need us and companies need HR more than anything else. So we need to open ourselves up to saying that how can we shift our mindset in the way we provide our services. Ultimately, your employee experience is probably the base function of what you're trying to achieve. And by managing that and keeping a close lid on that, you're probably going to be able to achieve most of your objectives. If you look at what's on your strategy, if you go and open up your strategy slide now and you just try and group that into what is employee experience, you'll probably find about 70 to 80% of it touches on employee experience. So if we can look at that and understand how do we use the data points, the data that our employees are giving us through different engagements and different mediums we have, and tie it up with what we're doing from an employee experience perspective, there's probably a lot of shift and a lot of momentum that you're having there. And I think the second thing for me is employee well-being. We all know is important. It's all on every company's agenda, but not every company is able to do everything for employees. And that's okay, because the little that we can do is still more than we did yesterday. So for me, like I said, it's the 1 centimeter. What is the 1 centimeter shift that you're doing that can just help an employee? We don't know. When they go home and employees are at home and you made a 1 centimeter shift for them, they might go to bed and actually sleep. Because there might be a lot of people that are not actually sleeping in there. So for me, your employee experience and your well-being are constructs that sometimes we shy away from because they sound like big terms and we don't know where to start. But just start, and no matter where you start, it will be the right place because you started. So from my side, all I want to say is just start.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Your favorite song?
My favorite song? Oh God, it's Indian song. No, I'm an old school kind of guy. So
everyone who comes to your podcast at the end, they must actually sing their favorite song.
No, I'm not a singer. I don't really have a favorite song because my music is more on the cultural side. But "Angel of Mine" by Brandy and Monica was the song that I think of my wife whenever a song
beautiful
comes on.
That's
so
beautiful.
Yeah, so for me that's the song that whenever it comes on, it just connects with me.
Zameer, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate your time.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming through. There you have it. This is the HR 360 podcast. We hope you found value in today's discussion. Be on the lookout for more episodes aiming to empower you in your HR profession, to leverage data analytics to extract insights and drive business value. Until next time, thank you.
Thank you.